Welcome, everybody. This is Dr. Nancy Zentis, the OD doctor, and I have the privilege to have Dr. Daniel Zimmerman here today. And we're going to talk about what do graduate students need to do in order to obtain a job in their field of profession after graduation. I'm
hmm
sure, I'm sure it's going to be really exciting. Hi, Daniel. How are you doing?
I am doing great, Dr. Zentis. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to devolve and discuss this topic with you. So let's rock and roll.
Right. Well, what are some of the burning issues and challenges that graduate students are having today in obtaining a position, especially in the field of OD and HR and learning and development?
Sure. That's a great question. One of the ways I want to tackle this is I would love to give you a little bit of a foundational understanding of the educational field to begin with, before we can talk a little bit about what is going to be needed and what are they tackling, or the issues in which they are um, having in with getting at when they get their degree. So, our educational system is old. If we think back to when our educational system was created, especially in college, higher education, it was developed, you know, it came over from Germany, right? Probably, or Eastern Europe. And it was mostly in the agricultural phase, right? Where information was passed down from family to family. The only people who really got an education were those that were needed, like lawyers or priests, and so it wasn't really a widespread demographic that actually got education. Most people were out working on farms and trying to help their families survive.
That's interesting.
And then as we continue to move through history, obviously we've developed, and in the 1800s and 1900s, what happened? We had the invention of steam, right? We had the invention of factories, and we moved into the industrial age. And that's where we have studies that were done by Frederick Taylor. We have the Hawthorne studies as well that talk a little bit about really the beginning of OD. That's back in the before times, even though OD is a very new topic in comparative to management or even accounting, right? Those have been around since probably Adam and Eve. OD is really, really new. But that's when education really people began to really need to have the additional skills, right? If they're going to go work in a factory, they need to have additional skills. There were different levels, such as managers, middle managers, owners. As people continued to work, organizations grew bigger. There was a bigger need for more skill sets. Education grew, and so that's really where our educational system is even today. It's set in the industrial age where we're learning what we need to know without a lot of critical thinking skills, right? So we understand our English. We can write, we learn how to write, we learn how to read, we learn how to take orders, right? From our bosses. We learn how to produce deliverables, but there's not a lot of creative thinking that goes into that. Moving forward here, and this is where a lot of our universities are struggling with, okay? And don't get me wrong, universities do a great job with giving students and graduates the knowledge. They give them the theories, they give them, the frameworks, but they don't give them the application, right? In order to take the information and run with it. It's equivalent if you think about reading a book on swimming, but actually learning how to swim, right? We can read books on swimming, but that does not make us swimmers,
Mm.
right?
Yeah,
And that's just the old adage. But again, we really need to have that application component. And looking at how universities are structured now in today's world, they're still missing that beat. There are some larger universities, they do have internships, but they are really lacking a full holistic overview of organizational development. You might take three courses. You might take large scale transformation. You might take a change management course. You might take, a early consulting course, related to organizational development or foundations of organizational development, right? Where you're just learning about the theorists. But there's not, and you might actually even write a couple papers on it, but there's not a lot of application. So when you go out into the real world, you're kind of like, what do I do now?
right.
Um, And so, what skills do graduates really need to have, right, when they do graduate? And this is where there needs to be a paradigm shift. There needs to be a new thought process in how we educate our students. And there are many universities that are moving towards this. And this is kind of the third wave. Actually, we are really in the third wave. We're stuck in the second wave of agriculture, of the industrial age. We are moving into actually we are in the information age right now. But if we continue to look forward and we're moving very, very quickly, we're moving into the age of AI-driven education, right? So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today, when we discuss this, it's going to be through the lens of what we need to do to get the graduates to really be successful when they move out, find that application component. So, you know, the skills that are being taught in schools today aren't going to be the skills that are going to translate to the workforce. So students need to actually go out on their own, maybe almost to find these additional skills and upskill themselves, such as understanding AI technology. Even though it's relatively in its infancy, it's going to be around for a long time. Even working within your university for professional networking. There's a lot of clubs out there, that you can join in. These are relevant skills. Communication skills is going to be a huge skill. We take public speaking at university, right? We might stand up and do a couple speeches, but we don't necessarily learn how to talk in front of people. We don't necessarily learn how to, what's a great way to banter. We lose a lot of that in our university setting, and the universities leave it to us on our own accord to actually go out and learn it. Um, and a lot of people don't know that. A lot of green people, when they come in from the university, when they come in and get their first job, they're like, well, my school never taught me this. And employers are expected that you know it. They are 100, and you can't use the excuse, well, my school never taught me. So, continue to learn, right? As always, you know, um, and then we're going to talk a little bit about professional certifications, but that's another great way as well to help students gain the skills that they need moving forward within once they graduate college.
So I just wanted to share with you, you might not know this, but in my first job out of college, I was older. I worked at a community college and I was in charge of internship programs that were
Mhm,
funded by the government, CETA. So my job was to create internships for people so they could gain job related experience. And it worked out really well. And I wrote grants and
mhm,
I was able to pay people to work in jobs that I would create them for them. And then we also provided career development training workshops for them, showed them how to write their resume, how to do a job search, how to interview. And that was part of the criteria for the grant, was that we had to ensure that people, once they completed the internship in their college, they received their college degree, that they would get meaningful full-time employment. So it was
mhm,
for disadvantaged people. It was try to reduce people from, receiving public funding.
mhm,
And I did that for over 5 years. And then I also took we in Detroit in those days in the 80s, there's a 38% unemployment rate. We had all these people that were let go or laid off from the automotive industry. So I created certification programs out of the degree programs. And I think there were 5 or 6 of them so that people could go and just take the core curriculum, where like diesel mechanic repair was one, home health care was another. And they could just take the core curriculum and they could be job ready in less than 9 months.
mhm,
Could always go back and get their associate's degree. But then that was really great too, because we paid them to we paid for their tuition and we paid them to attend school.
mhm.
So that was,
Absolutely.
and they still have that. They still have workforce development. You might not realize that through the government, they still have agencies in every state, every big city has it. And it's a really, I don't know, it's a really excellent way to really get the job experience that you need. So
Mhm,
I myself was an intern because they said I was a displaced homemaker and I didn't have enough skills to be employable. So I started taking as many internships as I could related to HR. My first one was in labor relations. I loved it. I worked in county labor relations, and that's where I got a lot of the foundation that I have now in OD for collecting data, doing salary surveys, preparing contracts, negotiation,
Hmm.
handling grievances. So it was, even though I was only there for maybe 6 months or so, that helped me get my first job
Hmm.
at the college. So that was really, I mean, but you have to be able to allow, colleges have to be able to allow people, you have to find meaningful jobs that relate to their fields of study, and then help to create these internship programs that I think that employers would be really excited about, because they would want, if those people were exceptional, they would want to hire them, since it's such a tight labor market.
Hmm.
That's kind of my thinking. And we've been, I mean, I know the college I worked at, they were really thinking about this for years. And now in in Michigan, it's in Auburn Hills is where the corporate headquarters is. Not corporate, what do I want to say? The headquarters for the OD community college. And they have a partnership with different manufacturers and technology companies.
Hmm.
It's called the Tech Corridor. And so they draw from the colleges. So it's really an amazing partnership they created. And I was a part of that, in the late 70s, early 1980s. So I was just hoping that the colleges had advanced from that point.
Hmm.
We were pretty innovative in the day. I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, there are a lot of universities that do have internships. So don't get me wrong. Now, whether or not that these students are prepared when they go into the internship, of course, the goal of the internship is to prepare them for the real world, but still there could be more. But we also have to think about you were right there, right, in with that school. We are now in a new paradigm. We are in a shift where people are working remote. People want online degrees. How do these online universities, such as Aspen, how do we integrate internships with people who are all across the world with specific organizations? It's a very difficult task to do, and that would actually be meaningful, to these students. So that's one of the challenges that education has. We're always going to have the land-based universities, right? That they'll have their partnerships, with these different organizations, but um, there are a plethora of people who are online as well, right? And how do we get them the experience? Do we use simulations? Do we use, you know, uh, real world case study development? What are some ways that we can get them that experience? And so, one of the ways that I've done it in the past, where we would actually have students go out and complete and work with a nonprofit, right? I developed a management consulting, I guess that's what they called it up in Canada, with the University of Fredericton, and I developed their MBA management consulting core that was based on Peter Black's Flawless Consulting, and literally went through their book. And we wrote the curriculum to the book, right? And their goal was to go out into a nonprofit and practice working on the process consulting skills, based on that book, but also on different aspects that we built into it. Um, that was an online university. I don't see that happening here in my area. Now, this could be happening in other areas. I can't know everything. I
Right.
wish I could.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
can't see all, but and I could be completely wrong, but I don't see it in my sphere of influence, right? So, it's definitely a challenge that I see needing to happen within the field of OD, because we really need to bring these people in with the experience to be able to sit down with a stakeholder and have these meaningful discussions. So,
I think, well, we've worked with Barry University in Miami,
mhm.
and we have had interns that have, it's a requirement to have an internship to
Oh,
get
wow.
there. So we had a group of five ladies that helped us kind of what they did was we kind of guided and we said I'm in favor of internship, so I'm always looking for interns. And what we did is just said, okay, we'd like you to take a look at our GIODN website and give us advice on what you think we need to do to improve it. So it's our
Mhm.
global OD network, and then present that to us. So they spent about a month and a half, 2 months, and they worked together as a team. They were very professional. They did a really great job. A lot of students, I think, also that are taking online classes, they do already have work experience. They might not be, they might not be a student just out of high school entering into college, but still, we need to help those folks too and give them maybe a career path on to gain skills. So I know Motorola in the day, they were committed to giving every high school student at least 3 experiences working at Motorola. So they were supporting the local school system. So it really kind of starts there. And then and having I love what is the oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget it. But I love what is it, the organization that you also learn about jobs and entrepreneurship. You remember what it is?
SBE.
Something like that. I'll think of it.
Okay.
But we had that in for over and we have oh my gosh, I'm sorry. But anyways, I think that high school students need to know about how people work, what types of jobs there are, maybe have a career fair and have get counseling or take a career planning class so they know exactly how to go about getting a job and what types of jobs are out there that they might be qualified for,
Hmm.
taking that, what is that, Strong Campbell inventory.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, I remember doing that in college, but I didn't really have that. I didn't know what I was going to be in high school. I thought I was going to be an artist.
Hmm.
And, but then I started taking classes and learned about what I really loved. And then I had to figure it out for myself. What kind of a career could that be?
Right. It really comes down to having that discussion. I think I took that same inventory when I was,
Yeah.
I'm back in the day, and my career goal based on that inventory was to be a garbage man. And they said, don't go to college. You're not going to do it. Yeah, and this is coming from a high school counselor,
Yeah.
and now look at me, today I have 2 doctorates and 2 master's degrees.
Wow. That's amazing.
So I mean, they're very wrong in
Right.
assessment. I guess it's used as a guide, but it can deter students, right? And it's having those meaningful discussions. Even today, my son is in high school, and and I bug him. I talk to him every day. I go, hey, are you gonna go talk to your career counselors? Are you gonna talk to the college reps? And they don't really place I mean, this is a huge high school and a high school system. It's very reputable, and they don't place a lot of emphasis on that. With talking with career
Mm.
counselors or talking with college reps, they throw it out there. If you want to talk with them, talk with them. But I talked with his advisor, and I'm like, well, what are we going to be doing here? Because I think I'm a little bit more in the know than the average adult, when it comes to education and moving my son through. But she's just like, well, what does he want to do? And I go, well, what have you talked to him about? What are the matriculation agreements to universities if he takes AP classes? If he wants business, where is he going? What can you do to help? And she was, here's a brochure.
Clueless, just
Here's a
clueless.
brochure. But the thing, and I'm not going to say that that's not their fault, but he's not, he's in honors programs, he's AP, but he's not on the super list where, those kids are going to Harvard and Yale, where they're, and that's where the big dollars come in, and that's where the notoriety comes in for the school, where they can get additional funding. And so it's interesting, and she has a lot of students, right, that under her guys. So but
Well, that's where OD can come in. I
there we
read
go.
about this years ago. And are you familiar with ISPI, International
SPI,
Society of Performance Improvement?
I've heard of it, yes.
They have the most wonderful journals. They used to publish them quarterly, and I don't know if they still do, but I have some of them. And in one of them, I read about action learning. So
Mhm.
action learning is very similar to OD, very similar. It was uh, I guess, formed by Reg Revens from Great Britain. So, so what it is, it's learning while they call it learning while you're actually working on a project, a real
Mm.
project. And it's all the skills that we show in OD. But what you're doing it with a team, a group of people, and they used it for leadership development. But this article was
Mhm.
about using it in college. From the
Mhm.
minute the student came in, you have these peer coaching sessions. So with whether it's a student, whether it's what do they call it when you're in a dorm, your
RA, residence.
yeah, so at every experience that the student has, they are in a peer coaching situation where people are either it could be one-on-one or it could be with peers, where they are learning the skills of how, how do you asking questions, um, helping people, it's a very OD method
Hmm.
of helping them through so their questions are answered, they gain confidence, they learn study habits. They learn, about all the resources in the college, about how people select their degrees, how what they're what they are looking forward in terms of the types of occupations. So it's instead of going in and not being able to, kind of being the new person without any kind of a path, it provides this path, this learning journey model
Hmm.
using action research process. So I loved that. I thought that was amazing. I use action learning many times when working with clients,
Hmm.
process for solving problems and developing stronger relations. And also it's building skills on 5 levels. So individually, team, leadership, business, and organization. So I think that's a great start. That can be done virtually as well, getting people, let's meet together. Let's like pose 3 or 4 questions that you have that you'd like answered. And let's go, let's do a brainstorming or affinity diagramming and
Hmm.
just everybody can talk about, what their ideas are about the questions. Then
Hmm.
we'll sort them, put it in some kind of order and come in some and create some kind of meaningful meaningful categories about the discussion and discuss it and how
Right.
it impacted you. So there's responsibility. People, they need to move it forward and maybe put it into a development plan and come back and receive coaching on it. So
Mhm.
I'll be happy to find that journal and send you the
Sure.
volume if you're interested, because I thought it was
Yeah.
very novel.
We're very big on action research here at Aspen. So, the way that we develop our program, especially in our dissertation phases, with in the computer science realm. So we really do a lot with I've really embedded a lot of OD practice within dissertation. Um, and I think that that has provided a much stronger product and a much better it relates better to audiences because technically, technically in technical worlds, computer science can be very overwhelming for the average audience, right? And what we try to do is we try to bring it down to the audience level where the average person can read it and understand and have takeaways from the dissertation. So action research does that in a great way because it provides a lot of relativity, it provides a lot of ability for them to relate the average audience, to the information that's being identified in their dissertation. So it's a great learning aspect.
I wanted to add junior achievement. That was when I took that
Oh yes.
and that was and then I realized I was an entrepreneur. I mean, I just loved it, that
Mhm.
experience. But there's a lot of junior achievement programs that have where you actually have 3 opportunities to attend a junior achievement day or a couple days and learn about business and how, organizations work.
Mhm.
And so that's a really excellent opportunity, but would be nice if also college students have that same experience. So maybe a
Mhm.
way, maybe negotiate with a junior achievement organization about how could college students come and visit and observe what's going on. It could be a project and see how kids are learning. I know
Mhm.
the one that they have in Fort Lauderdale, it has a whole town and all the businesses that could be in a town. And then and you get to go and you get to experience each one of them over a couple days.
Wow.
Each one of the different business, there's a government, there's the
Mhm.
police, there's like an insurance agency, just to name, there's a barber shop, just a multitude of businesses that would be in a city. And then you would go and get to run that business for a day or
Oh, wow.
for a period of time. So anyways, that those are some unique opportunities too for college students. If we could
Oh,
set something up like that, about maybe 4 or 5 businesses would come in and kind of, let students have an opportunity for a day to see how that business is run. That would be a really
absolutely.
good
That would
opportunity.
be a great idea. Definitely, especially community colleges. I know for junior achievement, I actually volunteered for them, a while ago, where I would go into the junior, the elementary schools, and they had
Mhm.
the specific curriculum for it, and they had a lot of fun with that. So anything that we can get that information out to them early, I think is definitely a bonus, and extremely critical, especially in today's day and age of YouTube, and getting them the right information, versus TikTok information. So,
So, university professors could use a self-development plan and some type of a assessment, like a
mhm,
career ready assessment. I'm sure there are, and then that could be part of their journey, is for the students to kind of select what they're interested in, what they think they're interested in. Blessing and White. This is my favorite, one of my favorite training vendors. Blessing and White. They have a thing called Managing Personal Growth.
okay.
And I was trained to be a trainer. And it was like a 3 or 4 day program. But what you do is you take several assessments and you get feedback. It's like a 180. And then what you do is you identify, what do you like to do? What do you think is important? And what are you good at? And then someone gives you feedback on, well, I know you like to do this, but it's not really that important. Here's some thoughts about what I think you should, here's what
Right.
you think you should do. But then it goes through a series of different activities, career development activities, for everybody. And then it's very interactive, so that they would share it with a partner or a group when they would get feedback. And they also talk about setting goals, personal goals, and achieving organization goals. So it shows you how to be like a corporate citizen as well.
Wow.
So
Yep.
there's corporate citizenship behavior built into it. So we want you to encourage you to spend time achieving your goals, but at the same time achieving the goals of the business. So having kind of the mindset that you are responsible for, you're accountable and responsible for the business goals as well as achieving your own career growth.
Mhm.
So anyway, I just recommend, if there's some way maybe you could contact them and find
Mhm.
out more about what they do. Maybe they have something for college students, or maybe we could just take a look at how we could develop something for the college students based
Sure.
on, there's tons of curriculum. Even Edgar Schein had a career anchors, a book he wrote on
Yep.
career anchors. I love that. And he has an inventory. So it's something that, we as OD professionals were, concerned with the individual growth and development. So it's something that we definitely could contribute to.
Yep. I believe very strongly in the development plan and providing goals. At another school that I developed an executive leadership program for them. And it's really funny because it's really geared for professional development, right? Executive leadership. So they're looking at goals. They actually do a professional development plan. They have their own mantra, right? And they continue to work through the leadership development, of being, an executive in today's corporate world. But it's understanding self, right? And if we can get our students to understand themselves through emotional intelligence and different ways like that, I think that we're going to be in good shape. It's just we're lacking that leadership. There's a huge leadership gap. in today's, that's why we have, CEOs
Yeah.
from large corporations that are working till 80 or 90 or coming back out of retirement because there's no one to fill the gap. And we can talk on succession planning. We can talk all day on leadership development programs as well, I'm sure, Dr. Zentis. But,
You're
again,
Catherine.
where we're talking OD on education, but there's a lot of gaps to be filled. I mean, just in education too, and um, I
Well,
know
it's
there's
okay.
certain.
It's really okay to kind of have several career experiences, I think. I
Mhm.
think it makes you more well-rounded. So
Yep.
I went from education to manufacturing, but I'm really happy. I could have stayed in education. Maybe I should have. Probably would have had a pension, but I jumped and I went to education. I went into the energy field. I went into the
Mhm.
aerospace field. I mean, I've had a lot of different roles in different, and I think that's really good experience too, to
Mhm.
get well-rounded. You might not always, today you might want to be a lawyer, but you might not be happy being a lawyer, but maybe being a lawyer, you need to have 3 or 4 experiences, or how else could you use the law?
Mhm.
Um, some people get into the CIA. One of our friends, she's as an attorney and she just joined the military. She
Wow.
wants to be an officer. So that was her goal for a long time. But yeah, I think you need to think about fulfilling yourself, doing meaningful work
Mhm.
that makes you feel passionate about what you do.
Absolutely.
And how you get there doesn't really matter.
Well, I
Just
could
do
throw
something.
another stat at you here. McKinsey back in 2015 found that, people who graduate with a bachelor's degree, 70% of them are not in a field that they graduated with.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
and then out of that and then the 30%, that do graduate in a field that they might still be in it, but 15% of them were very unhappy, right, and looking to change. So again, it's a matter of finding that right strike, getting those experiences, and understanding where you fit in the world. Because when you're 18 years old, you don't know. You don't know yet. You might be told, oh, you're going to be a doctor. Maybe, maybe not, right?
Yes, and then
So,
how much it's also financial too, because
yeah.
you could go through school for 4 years and then you still get a low paying job when you get out, when you get out of college. Even you might think that if you took accounting and business that you could get maybe a six, what I don't know, maybe make 80,000 a year with a bachelor's degree.
Mhm.
But a lot of graduates find that because they didn't have the job experience that it's difficult. They got to start entry level, and sometimes
Mhm.
it's just minimum wage. So
Right.
I definitely think that you should, have some kind of a work experience while you're in college in the summer, days off. And so, back to internships. When my brother was in high school, since I was running that internship program, I got him an internship um, for while he was in high school within, what was it? It was like it was in computer science, they called it in that day. So he did that for the summer for 3 months. They loved him. Then they sent him to some other program in northern Michigan where he got more advanced computer skills. Then he got into University of Michigan in electrical engineering. And then he's like, well, I really need money because I got to pay for my tuition and my room and board. So could you find me another internship? So I wrote a letter to somebody at General Motors, and they accepted him into an internship program at General Motors. He could work anytime he wanted, drive a car for free. He worked he worked there all through college, made really good money. And so the point of it is you have to think big, you
Mhm.
have to think about possibilities, and you have to ask for help.
Yep.
Who could ever believe that just by writing a letter to someone that you just knew their name, that would parlay itself into a really lucrative internship?
Right.
And he still
Trying.
gives me credit today, but I'm like, no, you're the one that did the work and you're the one that made us proud. So,
Mhm.
but just I want people to think about that. Like if you think about what it is you want to do, what kind of experience, who you might want to model yourself after, get the experience and just ask. People like to help other people. It's
Right.
amazing. You can, you don't, if you don't need money, you could just volunteer, but still it could be an internship, you
Right.
know, but still have the mindset that you're going to contribute to it as if you were employed, as if
Mhm.
it was a job that you had. So that's going to really, people that you meet, people you interact with, that's going to leave a positive impression in their minds, and they're going to be willing to support you.
Yep.
So that's my advice for everybody because it's worked
Good
for me.
advice.
It worked for many people that I helped throughout the
Yep.
years.
You're not going to know until you try. And a lot of
No,
people are
no,
afraid to try.
yeah. Yeah,
So,
no, the word no really never hurt anybody, right?
right.
So you got to learn to accept some no's, but just say, okay, what did I learn from that? And let's just move on. And who else could I ask? Who do I know? Um, think of all the people that you know, family, friends, neighbors, teachers, professional people that your parents do business with, and write down their names and then just email them or text them and say, do you have time to chat with me for a few minutes? I'd like to ask you a few questions
Mhm.
about about how you got started and and to help and to, just a few questions. And if you got 10 people, if you had 100 people that you identified and 10 of those people responded to you and you met with them and you asked them, I'd like to know more about what you do, about your business. Um, how do you think I could, how could I possibly get a position like this somewhere?
Mhm.
And then and maybe are there any opportunities in your organization for someone like me? What would that require? And if they say, no, I don't, there's nothing really here, you could say, well, could you refer 3 people to me that might be interested?
Yep.
I know technical skills, I know computer skills, I know how to use the internet. All the things that young people know that older people have a struggle with, those are the things that we need.
Yep.
So it's a sales technique.
Mhm.
You create your list of contacts, try to come up with 100 names, try to interview 10. When you do that, ask the questions. What do you do? Tell me how you got to where you're at. Well, how do you think I would fit in? Is there an opportunity for me? And would you refer me to 3 other people that you know that might help me?
Right.
And
Great.
it's pretty, and it's hard to pick up that phone and make the ask.
Yep.
But once that you do, you're going to feel a lot more confident in yourself.
Absolutely. All right.
This was fun, Daniel. What
Thank
are
you.
what are your final thoughts for us?
We talked a lot about a lot of different topics. So, again, yeah, education is there. It's foundational,
Mhm.
but when you really get down to it, you need to go external to continue to upskill and to get that experience. There's nothing wrong with getting an MBA, continue to, to get that experience through, theory, continue to read, but again, you need to continue to upskill, whether it's through personal experiences, whether it's through seminars, webinars, certifications, yeah. So I mean, it's just you just got to continue to learn. It's a learning is a journey, not a destination. So,
Right. You have to have job experience. So
mhm.
however you do it, however,
Yep.
every year that you miss out on the job market is a year that you lost.
Hmm.
So keep that in mind. So I think I love when you get the 2-year degree in high school, do the dual
Yep.
enrollment, college and high school. Then when you go on to the 4-year university, you only have 2 more years. So if it took 4 years, you could still get a job and you could work.
Right.
And then you would be ahead of other people who just simply went from high school to college. You'd be 2 years ahead of that whole group of people in the job market.
Right. And I would be amiss to say, and I know we're running short on time, but take the opportunities that you have within your job. If you have an entry level job, take the skills that you're learning outside. If it is something like if you're learning an OD, if you want to learn about McKinsey, the McKinsey 7S model, see if you can't implement it in your workplace. Even though it's probably not part of your job, they would probably be more than happy to take your report to see, where are the gaps, what can we work on. And so
Right.
that's a great way and a great experience. You're not going to get paid for it, outside, but it's a great experience to run through the process. So,
You might like at a church in your religious groups,
mhm,
they need a lot of help. Like you said, the nonprofits, and then that's great to get that exposure in the nonprofit world as well. I
mhm,
did a lot of consulting in the nonprofits, and and sometimes they even give you scholarships. So
mhm,
a lot of companies offer scholarships to students as well. So there's a lot of opportunities. You have to make the ask. No one's going to volunteer the information unless you ask the question.
absolutely,
Well, let's continue this conversation. I think
absolutely.
it's amazing. And hopefully, we've inspired a few people. So, for you college students that are looking for maybe advancing in the field of HR or OD or training and development, look to Institute of Organization Development. We have some great certification programs. We actually teach you how to apply different
Mhm.
tools and concepts. It's from OD and HR. So you'll learn facilitation skills, leadership development, team development. There's a whole cadre of different things that you'll be able to learn from us and apply them and be able to have that on your resume. So
Yep,
we look forward to serving our college graduates in any way that we can. Give us a call and let us know. Look at our website, instituteod.com. And so this is Dr. Nancy and Dr. Dan.
Dr. Dan. Yep, Dr. Z, they like to call me. So,
Okay. Oh, we're both Z's.
yep,
Two Z,
there we go.
Dr. ZZ. Um, and we look forward to working with you. We do have some events coming up on our global OD network that are free if you want to start taking advantage of those. So anyway, we look forward to working with all of you. Thanks, Daniel. Happy
Thank
Thanksgiving,
you.
everybody.
You
We'll
too.
talk to you
Thank
soon.
you. Take care.